Hi there. I'm continuing with the analysis of my most recent channeled video, which is called Blue Star Solstice 2016 Memory Complex Codes, Royal Houses of Sirius, Pleiades and Lyra. So we're coming here to the end of the channeled material, and the 9 have gone through a process of delivering to you information. All of that information acts as a DNA trigger to your own memory, but it's also an explanation of what's occurring. But now towards the end of this transmission, it's moving more into utilizing the language of light codes through this 5th dimensional metaphoric presentation. So we're moving more into an activation. So it gets to the point towards the end of the transmission that I'm not saying it can't be analysed, but when it gets to that point, it doesn't necessarily benefit us to analyse that aspect. It is more of a pure energy. You can analyse it to a point, but it does its work in a far greater way when it isn't analysed. So you can have information coming in that is a DNA trigger, and you can draw this in through the right hemisphere of the brain and analyse this through the left hemisphere of the brain. And then the activation itself sort of remains within this right hemisphere field, where you take in the emotion that you feel and the visuals and the energy, rather than an analysis, because it gets to the point where you then bypass the left hemisphere of the brain. So it's very important to utilize both in order to stay grounded, in order to understand, in order to process this journey within a 3rd dimensional incarnation. But then it gets to a point where you let that go and you move into a surrender and you take the purity of the energy. It's a difficult one to understand. I know there are lots of people who awaken to this energy who perhaps teach surrender, let go. It's all about the flow. It's all about the energy. Just feel the emotion and you don't need to analyze. And that is true to a point, but then it gets to a point where it becomes, you become ungrounded unless you do move into the left-brained analysis. You need both. And that is the pattern of the organic human being, and he or she who moves into genius flow, someone who utilizes the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. And that is also alchemy. That is the alchemizing energy. That is the inner alchemical merge, the divine marriage between the male and the female aspects. It's the same thing. So when you're fully in the female, you can become ungrounded. When you're fully in the male, you have no inspiration, you have no experience or heart within that divinity. But when you take the two, this is when you move into the pattern that the human being, the organic human, is destined for within their blueprint. Many are destined to move into this within this lifetime and are moving into this within this lifetime en masse. And that is the ascension process. There are others who don't have that necessarily in their destiny, but they do have, all individuals have the triggers to be able to shift into this and then change their destiny. They then become destined to also move into this organic human template, this master of the matrix, someone who is standing in sovereignty. So moving more into the transmission and the channeling, the fairies holding magical weaving and spell. So we're looking at these winged creatures which are presented as energetic life that is a sort of higher aspect of nature, if you like. So when we are on this planet and we look at trees and bushes and flowers and rivers and rocks, on a 3rd dimensional level, we see nature and we see structure and we see the earth. And within the higher echelons of the 3rd dimension, we see beauty and we become inspired by this beauty. Within the fourth dimension, or within the harmonic that exists between the third and fourth dimension, so it's a merge point between the higher harmonic of the third dimension and the lower harmonic of the fourth dimension, we can see life within nature. So if you're looking at rocks, you may see a flash of color, a movement, light. Your sight may change. You may trigger into the inner sight, utilizing the pineal gland sight, and see beings, fairies, winged creatures, gnomes, and nature spirits, and sprites, and goblins, and all these magical fairy folk, elves. So that's a metaphor for the higher energy that is nature, the guardians of nature, which are us. And these are projected consciousness structures that are aspects of us that merge with this planet. And they present as these winged beings. And these winged beings hold consciousness. They are individualized structures. So on the one hand, they are a metaphoric presentation for nature, or a higher energetic for nature. But when they take form with these wings, or however they present within this sort of harmonic that is within that merge point between the third and fourth dimensions, they do present like the traditional fairy. So holding magical weaving. So the magical weaving, they are dream weavers. They are able to weave the dream. They are storytellers, as in the way that they weave the network, create the grid, weave that energy throughout nature. When we get into a fifth dimensional presentation, then we start to see full embodiment, archetypal presentations of the goddess. We may see the green man. We may see within an underworld energy, we may see Pan, the nature god, or there's a whole fifth dimensional template of these beautiful archetypal presentations, moving into ascended master frequencies as well. So we can view the fairies, if you like, throughout these energetic dimensions. And when we get into the sixth dimension, we are looking at geometry. That is a living network of light. It is the light body of these fairies, going through a very similar process to us, for all structures are in a state of ascension. And as we ascend, we push through and ascend all these other dimensions, and it works the other way as well. When higher dimensions ascend, it pulls us up. It's a simultaneous movement. So holding magical weaving and spell. So when we're going into spell and moving into magic, this becomes an activation, because the language of light is being utilized. And the language of light is not just the energetic presentation metaphorically and visually, it is the word. Spell is a very powerful DNA trigger. We resonate with that word, spell, magic. And we resonate because when we hear these words, when we are aware starseeds and we are being triggered into DNA activation and into our mission, activating that blueprint, when we hear the words magic, spell, we think, that's me. That relates to me somehow. I'm not sure how, but spell. And we'll feel it emotionally. It will be like hearing the name of a long lost, dearly loved family member. Magic, spell. We will take it in personally. We are blueprinted to do this. So that's why we're moving into an activation here. And the nine do this all the time. If you've watched my channeled videos, you will know that this is a regular presentation from the nine, that they are here to trigger you in every single way that they possibly can, or every way that I can understand, so that I can bring them through in order to create that triggering. And you're going to have your own guidance system doing exactly the same thing. So you're going to be hearing magic, spells, fairies, the gold energy, the platinum ray, the diamond light, all sorts of energies, Avalonian Royal House of Avalon is another one, which is the starseed awakening on Earth and the connection back to the genetic lines. Avalon takes you back to an Earth incarnation that mirrors the Sirian and Pleiadian and Lyran incarnation. It's also connected through an Arcturian stream as well. The fairies holding magical weaving and spell, the winged creatures of dark and light. So we're not just looking at this beautiful presentation of nature in its light form, where we have these loving elves and pixies and fairies. We are looking at the dark energy. Now, this doesn't mean negative, and it doesn't mean evil or fearful or black. We have a dark light polarity within the lower dimensions, or rather within the physical dimensions, the third dimension and the fourth dimension. We have polarity. We still have polarity in the fifth dimension, but the polarity is of a higher vibration. And when you look at polarity fifth dimensionally, you will then see two dimensions split. You'll go into well, that's more of a fourth dimensional structure, actually. You'll see a split where you see the dark, lower, negative fourth dimensional field and the positive fourth dimensional field. When you get into the fifth dimension, there's still polarity, but because the fifth dimensional energetic frequency is predominantly unconditional love, you are going to have polarities of love and light and love. So you may have intelligence and knowledge and emotion, but you're not going to see dark and light or evil and good or fear and love in the way that you would within the fourth and third. So when we're looking at a fourth dimensional structure here, we're looking at winged creatures of dark and light. So dark would be a metaphor for potentially a service to self structure, the negative aspect of the fourth dimension, or we could be looking at an underworld and an overworld structure, which is also polarity, but it's a different kind of polarity because both of these run through a positive stream. So the overworld would be the heart, the higher chakras. The underworld would be the lower chakras, but still just as needed. For you need all the chakra system and all the energetic system to stay in balance and become the organic human, or the master of the matrix, or the sovereign being. So winged creatures of dark, you may see, creatures with black wings rather than white wings. It's just the way that that those colors present, but they are just as important as one another. The dark, the black, is power. It is the understanding of integration within the physical realm. It is the gut feeling. It is creating boundaries. And it is, when it is merged with light, the heart, the third eye and the crown, then you have the organic human template. You can't have just the dark path and expect to move into pure balance. You can't have just the light path and expect to move into pure balance. You need to merge the two together to become dark and light, black and white. And that's the yin yang symbol, if you like, the black, the white. They're both equally as important. You could also use this as a metaphor for the female and the male. You could also use this for night and day, or dream time and awake time. All polarities that are equally as important as the other. For if you only worked spiritually within a day and you didn't ever analyze the dreams at all, then you're not in balance in that aspect. If you only worked with your spirituality and your ascension process at night and not within the day, same thing. So we have the two. We can also liken this to the path of the sun and the path of the moon, just using the two planetary systems that stand as a energetic to this planet, the sun and the moon. So winged creatures of dark and light, are you in flight within the fourth and fifth dimensional fields? So this is what I was saying about the structures that stand as a higher frequency within nature. They're also aspects of us, for we are all things, but we project our consciousness into the consciousness of the earth, and vice versa. The earth projects her consciousness into us. We are one being. You know, we may live on this planet and we may perceive that we are walking on a planet and living on a planet, but in truth, the planet and the beings that live on the planet are merged. They are one. And so the presentations of nature are at one with you. The winged creatures of dark and light are you in flight within the fourth and fifth dimensional fields. So we've got this polarity of dark and light in the fourth, and we can see this within fifth dimensional streams as well, when it takes on this positive presentation, because the predominant energy within the fifth dimension is unconditional love. The kings, queens, princes and princesses, which I've spoken about in previous videos, and the trigger into the royal line as you. So this is you as this royal line, you as the king, the queen, the prince or the princess, all very powerful language of light metaphors to trigger memory and awakening. Holding individualized memory, we've talked about what individualized memory is, continue through incarnations, and we've discussed that. With individualized memory, we've discussed what that is, creating the memory complex that is you. So the kings, queens, princes and princesses, you, and the trigger into the royal line as you, the memory of the higher dimensional states and the Pleiades, Lyra, the inception points, holding individualized memory. So we're individualized, not in the oneness, but in the holding individualized memory as a soul, continue through incarnations with individualized memory, creating the memory complex that is you. And that is so important. The individualized memory creates the memory complex that is you. Your memory is creating you. That's who you are. As you access these memories, it creates you. It brings more of you into this physical stream that is you. The more memory you hold, the more you create yourself as a being. So on one level, we could say we are building a structure. We are creating a template. We are creating the matrix, if you like. So we could see this as a geometric structure, but we can also see this as a persona, as an archetype, as a being of light, holding memories throughout all these incarnations. So the individualized memory creates the memory complex, and the memory complex is you. This is why it is so important to awaken into these memories, and it doesn't matter if it isn't processed. I'm doing my best here to analyze this transmission, but it doesn't matter if it's not analyzed. If the triggering takes place and the memory is there, if it's analyzed, it's great, because you're holding that within the third dimension and you have knowing of what's going on. But if it's not analyzed, it doesn't mean you won't activate. Of course you still will. You don't need to analyze this. It's simply a choice that you choose, and many right now are choosing to exercise the left hemisphere of the brain and move into the analysis, which is why I've been drawn to analyze this particular transmission, as the transmission itself, whilst it's a trigger, it was a perfect transmission to analyze, because it talks about analysis itself. It talks about the memory itself, which is the tool for the the triggering. So individualized memory creating the memory complex that is you. These royal ones are you within fifth and sixth dimensional fields. So the other way of looking at this would be to say, you exist now here on Earth. Say your name is John and you exist here on Earth. Your inception point or previous incarnations in higher dimensions may be called well, they probably wouldn't have names like John or Sarah. These individuals have different names. So let's just give them some Earth type names, for example. So let's say you're John in this lifetime, but in the higher dimensions within, say, the Pleiades, you're Peter. Now, does that mean that Peter's you? Well, on one level, Peter's a separate entity from you, a separate being. Peter is your previous life, if you like. But these royal ones are you within fifth and sixth dimensional fields. This is you in the fifth dimension. So Peter is a past life or a future life version of you, but is also a different dimensional version of you, because the past and the future are synonymous with dimensions, are different dimensions. The past and the future are other dimensions. So Peter is you in the fifth dimension, and Michael may be you in the sixth dimension. These royal ones. So when you think of these royal extraterrestrial beings, these ultra-dimensional beings within these other dimensions, within these other planetary systems, they are you within fifth and sixth dimensional fields. And because when we're looking within a sixth dimensional field, as I spoke in one of the earlier videos, it's a group soul. So if you look within the fifth dimensional field at you, say we're looking at a Lyran energetic, and say we're looking at a elemental fairy type aspect of you within the Lyran planetary system. So this being looks human but has wings and different hair and slightly different eyes. Let's say that's the fifth dimensional version of you, even though you may see this as an extraterrestrial or a fairy. It's you within that dimension. When we go to the sixth dimension, there are 3 beings or 6 beings or 7 beings or 9 beings or 12 beings or 13 beings, depending on the geometry you're working with in that particular frequency for that particular aspect. So you would see a group of beings. These royal ones are you within fifth and sixth dimensional fields. The sacred geometries as pyramid, triangle, dodecahedron, and yet more presentations, the Star of David, the Merkaba, the grids, the lattices, and the matrices, they're presented through artwork, dreamtime, crop circle, sand circle, snow circle, and grids and maps you shall see when you fly high above your planet in your planes and airships and astral bodies. The sacred geometries as pyramid. So we have these sacred geometric structures that are living consciousness structures in all imaginable forms. So if you look at the platonic solids and you move them around, you know, like back in the 80s, well, if you were in the 80s, if you you know, lived through the 80s, we all had what's called a Rubik's Cube. You can still get them now. And we would like move them around and get them all into patterns where all the red and the blue matched. Great fun they were. It's a similar sort of thing, but you're not just moving squares into color. You can actually take these platonic solids and move them into all these different shapes. And there's just an infinite stream of different presentations of this geometry in different ways that they can connect with one another and change into something else. And you know that that film, The Transformers, and those toys that little boys love, the Transformers, they're like that. They're like Transformers. They are the ultimate Transformers, and they can change shape into one thing and then be something else and they be something else. And this is what the 9 are. That's exactly what the 9 are, and that's what your guidance system are. Each time they change, even if they just change one little thing, then they hold a different frequency, or rather they play a different note, a different tune, or they hold a different color. And each of those changes holds an energetic match that sets within the third dimension. So the pyramid, which is more of a sort of a triangle, triad shape, although I'm also told that pyramids are kind of like diamonds, because when you see the pyramid coming out of the sand, then there's another, or there was originally in the original building of the pyramids, there was a sort of a triangle like this and another one going down into the sand as well. So they're like sort of these diamond shapes. The dodecahedron, I mean, this stuff goes beyond me, I have to admit. I'm not really familiar with the higher platonic solids. I don't really know the dodecahedron from the others, but this is what the 9 come forward with, and what they tell me is this is just this is like an expansion, if you like. So if you have a triangle, there's 3 sides, that holds a structure. These are the building blocks of creation, and each time there's a new add-on, a new upgrade, there's expansion within consciousness itself, and yet more presentations. So don't need to go through every single geometric presentation, but if you research sacred geometry, then you will see all of these presentations. So using quite well-known forms of these geometric presentations, the Star of David, the Merkaba, the grids, and the lattices and the matrices. So the grids, well, the Star of David is, we know that particular geometric shape. The Merkaba is quite similar to what I was saying about the pyramid. The Merkaba being more changeable as the Merkaba moves into this sort of sideways movement as it expands out and activates within you. Anyone who's done Merkaba meditations will know what that feels like. And then there's a spin that takes place and a rotation that takes place, and then that links to the DNA, or is the DNA. And there are many Merkaba teachings out there that if you're interested in working with the Merkaba, there's lots and lots of teachings out there that you can go and find. The grids, I've spoken about these networks, these crystalline networks and grids that are created throughout structures, including the planet or us, our thoughts, the dimensions. They all have these grid structures, the lattices and the matrices. When you start looking at the universal web in a clairvoyant sense, when you start opening the third eye, perhaps when you move out of body and you start to look at creation itself, you will see these what looks like a lattice, that sort of fencing that crisscrosses over matrices, these a series of matrix after matrix, these grids. It's all kind of the same thing, really. And that is the frequency created by these geometries that actually set and create the building blocks of creation. All of these are triggers. The word grid of light, lattice of light lattice, matrix, matrices, the Merkaba. These aren't just explanations, they are language of light presentations, and there is frequency, keys, codes, and triggers to DNA activation and awakening in all these words. This is one of the reasons why so many channels will use similar words, because the guidance system, if that guidance system is working within a positive polarization, its focus, its intention, that guidance system, its focus, its intention is to react and move into a service energetic in service to humanity. So when humanity says, I don't like it here on Earth anymore, things have to change, and it gets to a certain critical mass, there will be a reaction to that thought. And when that thought reaches critical mass, these energetics are created in response to that thought. It's an externalized aspect of your own thought. And so the intention will be the exact polarity match to the original asking. And then they sort of lock together in this geometric form. So one of the methods with which the intention to activate your memory is used is through the language of light, and through these key energies, which are words, sound, frequency, visual, emotional. They come in so many forms. So the words Merkaba, grid, lattice, matrix, they are all trigger words presented through, and the 9 then speak about how they're presented on our planet. Artwork, you've only got to look throughout history and you will see these sacred geometries throughout artwork, and the genius artists of our time would all have been standing within that higher flow. Their artwork would be channeled, if you like. They are a psychic artist, if you like. They're standing within that energetic flow, able to open up into that super conscious expansion and draw down that energy. So artwork throughout history, and I can think of Leonardo da Vinci being one, but pretty much every artist, every painter that has become well known, and their name has stayed known years and years later after they have lived their incarnation and left their incarnation, they will have been utilizing this higher energetic. They will have been bringing divinity through. And you can see through the artwork, you've got this sort of fifth dimensional trigger. So when we look at religious paintings, religious artwork, there's lots and lots of keys and codes coming in through the archetypal religious paintings. So that would be more of a fifth dimensional stream, but the activation from this artwork is just as powerful. And if you want to know more about this subject, I can recommend William Henry, very much so. If you haven't heard of William Henry and you are interested in how artwork creates a trigger and how we're connected with it within our own ascension process, please go check out William Henry. In the sixth dimensional structures, we've got geometries coming into the artwork. And so if you look at some of the fifth dimensional structures of religious artifacts, religious presentations of individuals and archetypes, you'll see geometry behind it or coming through the painting somewhere. So there may be sort of a pyramid somewhere, or a Star of David somewhere, or there'll be some other form of geometry or mathematical painting. Now, this isn't just ancient paintings that have been painted thousands of years ago, left for us to receive the triggers. This is modern. There are painters out there now that are children and teenagers and young adults, and they are here to do the same thing, and it is phenomenally big now how many are bringing forward the codes through art. And you can find them not just in traditional painting, you can find them in illustrations in fictional books. You can find them in tarot cards and oracle cards. You can find them within digital artwork as well. So these triggers visually they surround us. They also counteract the service to self structures, because the service to self groups use visual triggers to suppress DNA activation, and that's all around us. So these higher service to others structures counteract this. So you won't be suppressed if you are aware of that which activates you. You will become activated, and you will ignore the visuals that suppress you. They become invisible to you. They don't actually come past your barrier once you start to awaken and notice the service to others activation visuals. Third dimensional individuals who haven't noticed may still be triggered. I won't use the word triggered because it's not a triggering. It's a closing off. It's a shutting down, and that is all around us. We only have to look in sort of the system, advertising. These visual structures that shut us down are everywhere. It's a form of mind control, if you like. But these other service to others light structures are there to do the opposite. And this comes in through sound as well. So you've got music and all the fields. There is a balance going on all the time, and we choose Do we want to look at this or listen to this, or do we want to look at this or listen to this? So we choose, and if our resonance is good and we're opening up, we will naturally gravitate towards the artwork or the music that is in alignment with our energetic structure. So dream time, well, if you start to activate, you will be noticing sacred geometry within your dream time. It's going to be there in some form. It can be there in a very profound way, especially within out-of-body travel, when you are utilizing that which is known as the celestial body. The celestial body has a sort of blue, royal blue tinge to it. And when you move through portals within the celestial body, you actually go through geometric fields. And you can actually see this blue geometric lattice matrix, like a stargate, and you move through it and you feel it emotionally. Very beautiful experiences to go through. If you want to know which body you're in, if you move into out-of-body work, if you look at your hands and they have a light sort of white see-through look to them, you can always see your hands, but your hands may look very different to how they look in your actual physical life. They may be bigger, smaller, different color, all sorts. Everything is a code, everything is a message. So if you see like a white sort of colorless tinge, then that's the sort of first dream body. If you see a blue tinge, then you've activated this celestial body. And it's amazing. You know that film The Matrix, where you see all those green you see the green matrix when Neo is in the actually in the matrix. It looks exactly like that, but it's blue, not green. But anyway, I'm going off topic here. Crop circle. So massive energetic triggers and DNA triggers. Crop circles are information for the planet, because the planet itself is feeling that crop circle, and also for us. If you want to know about who the circle makers are and why the crop circles are created, I do have a video which was channeled from the 9 a long time ago. It's one of my first earlier videos called Who Are the Circle Makers? Please go check that out. Sand circle. That's new to me. I did not know that circles were made in the sand. The 9 tell me they are. But a lot of these are not discovered because weather or nature or the sea might sort of wash them away. But yes, I'm told there are sand circles in like a sandy terrain. Snow circle. I was aware that there were snow circles. And that it's the same thing, just coming through the snow. So if you go and watch my video, Who Are the Circle Makers, it will explain what these circles are there for and who actually creates them. And grids and maps you shall see when you fly high above your planet in your planes and airships and astral bodies. So what the 9 is saying here is, if you go outside of the planet in a plane or in some kind of airship or in your astral body and you look down on the earth, you can see grids and maps. This is new information to me. I haven't really been given any more information about where these are, but there is a well-known one. There is a well-known sort of map that is shown. Is it the Nazca lines? I think it might be the Nazca lines, something like that. That's one of these grids and maps that I'm talking about. But there are many. If you want to know, rather than getting on a plane or getting into some kind of hot air balloon and flying over the planet, you can go into dreamtime work, move into out-of-body experience, and actually ask, intend to see what these grids and maps are. But certain structures within land, within nature, creates grids and maps that are activation and information. So if you want to know more about that, I would suggest you research the ley lines, research anyone who is teaching about crop circles and natural energetic structures there's bound to be information out there. It's like I said, it's kind of new to me, so I haven't got much to say there other than what the 9 are telling me. And they're telling me that if you go outside of the Earth and you look at the Earth, there are grids and maps, and they are there presented in this sacred, geometric, activating sense. These are you within 6th and 7th dimensional fields. So the royal ones, the individualized memory, creating the memory complex that is you, these royal ones are you within 5th and 6th dimensional fields. So your 5th dimensional counterpart are these royal activated aspects within the Pleiades, Lyra, and Sirius. Within a geometric structure, they're in the 6th dimensional fields, but the sacred geometries themselves that stand within these presentations, the grids, the lattices, and these geometries presented through artwork, dreamtime, crop circle, sand circle, snow circle, and these grids and maps you see when you move outside of the planet, they're you within the 6th and 7th dimensional fields. Now this sort of tallies up with the crop circle channeling, who are the circle makers. So if you go and watch that, then the information is kind of similar. It's talking about, it's you, it's your consciousness. So these grids, these maps, these geometries are us, and they are our higher bodies, if you like. The dream weaver's web is all around you. So we've discussed what the dream weaver's web is. If you go back and look at the last video I did, talks about the dream weaver's web. It's all around you, and she'll remain all around you until such time you step into this as the dream walker. So the dream weaver's web is all around you. This story that's been weaved. You know, if you, like I said, if you go back and listen to the last video, we'll talk about what the Dreamweaver's web is. And then you step into this story as the dream walker. And you walk the path that has been weaved before you. So someone thinks of something, somebody creates something, either unbidden or consciously, utilizing magic, weaving a platform, a story, an energetic, and it is presented within that consciousness grid. When you become the dream walker, you walk the path that's been weaved before you. So you have these higher spiritual teachers, if you like, delivering this information, channels and whoever they may be, delivering the information. And as you learn, as you listen to that information and you follow the teachings and you go through the activations and the tips that they're giving you, you become the dream walker. You walk the path that has been weaved before you. You continue on in your personal quest of the creation of individualized memory as a complex. So as you're walking the dream that's been weaved by another, you are adding to that individualized memory. You are creating this memory complex, an integrated soul. And as you do this, then shall you step into the dream weaver's shoes yourself and walk the path as the dream weaver, as you create the web. So this is really a sort of a metaphor that is a very powerful DNA activating metaphor, utilizing the language of light as it's explained to you. So we get the 9 are going in here, utilizing the awareness of the left and the right brain simultaneously when they say this to you. What they're saying is, you awaken, you expand, you become aware, you learn, you activate, you follow these teachings, and then you turn this around and you then become the teacher. You teach others. You deliver these keys and codes and triggers and these activations to others. You step into the Dreamweaver's shoes yourself and walk the path as the Dreamweaver, as you create the web. So that's what you are all doing. Everyone listening to this video, you would not be here listening to this if this was not you. You are in varying stages of being the Dream Walker and shifting into the Dreamweaver. You may well be a Dreamweaver already or a Dream Walker, but you are all on that path because we are all moving into this integration as a soul. So the 9 say here, you create the story. So shall we now present through the platinum ray your awareness of your direct source incarnations. So what the 9 are doing here is presenting a story, a weaved, the 9 acting as the dream weavers. I'm the dream walker as Magenta because I'm walking the path that's been weaved for me by the 9 and weaved for you. When I stand as a channel for the 9, then I become the dream weaver in that aspect as I bring forward their information. But really, ultimately, as me, as the physical aspect of me, I'm the dream walker, and the 9 are the dream weavers. That's kind of a good metaphor for where we are with this. So what they do here is they bring forward the story, utilizing language of light triggers with many, many, many words, and creating imagery to present to you your awareness of your direct source incarnations. So everyone is a direct source incarnation, as I have discussed if you go back to the video before about direct source incarnations. So it's not necessarily the best and most positive way to go to actually analyze this. There may be parts of this that would be positive to analyze, but this really is to be given to you in its pure form for you to utilize it at its best. For the seed burst forth from the oneness and the unity through the streams of light past the logos, through the galactic core, and matter was formed from the thought, and the thought directed the stream. There was a split creating a dualistic twin, and the twin of light remained in the fields of light, and the other twin did form as blood and bone and nerves, created as a mirror image of the twin of light. And the blood, bone, and nerves twin did move through a descension, down, down, spiraling down, until the twin moved through the dense worlds where memory of the twin of light could not be held within the conscious thinking part of the blood and bone twin. Therefore, the codes for the memories of the twin of light remained only within the blood and bone, to come online when the conscious thinking part could hold and process the memory. So shall there be such a time for you, and the code was formed as the time is now, or now is the time, and the seed from the oneness and the unity who became the twin of light remained always within the blood and bone of the twin who existed in matter. That story is an activation. So to analyze it is to change its structure. So I am told from the 9 that isn't what I'm to do. What I will say is, if you've been listening to all the analysis videos that I've done, you should be able to analyze that yourself, and that's the way to go. So if you listen to that as an activation, either here in this video or go back to the Blue Star Solstice video and listen to it in its, as I've presented it in that sort of channeled sense with music and visuals. The imagery that's coming up for you is going to be information and activating. I have had questions sent to me about the twin of light remaining within the blood and bone, and the twin of light remaining in the fields of light. So you've got one twin staying in the fields of light and others within the blood and bone. And people are asking me if this is connected to twin flames. Yes, but this is presented as the true twin flame being the aspect of the higher self and the aspect of the physical self. So I will end this video now, but I will come back to this twin question in the next analysis video. So thank you very much for listening, and I will be back with another analysis video. Have a nice day, take care, and bye. What is the Matrix? Who are the Masters? I, Magenta Pixie,
am so very pleased to present my first book, channeled from my guidance system that I refer to as the White-Winged Collective Consciousness of Nine. Discover the true story of our origins as an energy system, how we lost the original template for our destiny, and how we are now in the process of remembering those lost codes. Learn how humanity may reclaim the sovereignty which is rightfully ours, bringing us back into wholeness, integration, and full understanding of who we are, what we are, why we are here, and what we are here to do. Spirituality, metaphysics, and science merge as the sacred geometry, known as the language of light, is downloaded and decoded. The realization and activation of these ancient codes for a new dawn of man is an alchemical process available to us all. Now is the time that collectively we move forward into a fully conscious ascension and embrace the new archetype of Master of the Matrix.